Should the Oklahoma Sooners consider another quarterback change?
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. He's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. The Oklahoma Sooners quarterback situation has been a roller coaster ride of sorts throughout the 2024 season, and we felt like it was heading in a positive direction after Jackson Arnold's performance against South Carolina, his performance against Ole Miss, and then obviously the main game was going to have a positive outcome. But things kind of crashed back down to earth this past weekend against Missouri. So, Jay, what do you think Oklahoma should do at quarterback entering the bye week and with a week and a half to get ready for Alabama?
Well, you have a quarterback that was only able to throw the ball for 74 yards. You could tell that he could see ghosts. It looked like there was a lot more nerves than there should have been. And especially when you get back to receivers, at least one of them that was able to play most of the game. Farouk caught a pass, ended up, I think, checking out the game like right after making that catch. I think his foot was bothering him a little bit more than expected. But the turnovers. Yes, Jackson Arnold has thrown 12 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He fumbles the ball a lot. Mm-hmm. And I think that to me, that kind of warrants moving on to Michael Hawkins against Alabama, because Alabama knows what to do. They're going to bring a pass rush. They're going to blitz. They're going to keep throwing pressure. They're going to keep throwing those crimson helmets at him to make him think that he's looking at his own teammates, or that he's feeling pressure, anticipating pressure, even if there is no pressure. Those crimson helmets has a very good chance of confusing him out there, especially with the way that we've seen him go with everybody else. It may be time to go ahead and move forward with another quarterback and leave it at that.
I just don't know what to do here, because both quarterbacks have shown really promising things. Both quarterbacks have turned the ball over a bunch. Quarterback competition, 2-quarterback system. Just throw the darts at the wall and pick one. It does, to me, at this point, the quarterback situation is going to be so fluid towards the end of the season, and I don't know where you go from here. I really don't. Listen, I think there's a lot of talent still there. I think it can come to fruition, but for whatever reason, we cannot get consistency out of Jackson Arnold. We can't get development out of Jackson Arnold. It's 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And painfully, I say this because I think the kid is a really good player, and I think he's a good kid. He's just not going to be a fit for Oklahoma long term.
Yeah,
may not be ready to be a Power 4 starter at this point.
At least that's the way that it looks right now. And then that question is what does it mean? Was it the Seth Luttrell situation? Has that caused it? Like, what is it? Why can't we hold on to the ball?
Yeah.
I think that's where we need to get back to the basics of. Why can't we hold on to the ball? Because it seems like every time you look up, as the game goes, the ball just keeps coming out of our hands. And, I mean, that's a fundamental thing. That's back to the basics with the coaching staff. So it's something that has to definitely be worked on going forward, especially in the offseason as you bring in new players in the spring enrollment. But with Jackson, the question I'm asking is, can we trust him to not drop the ball against Alabama next week? Can we trust Michael Hawkins to not throw interceptions against Alabama, as well as not fumble the ball? Right now, it's just, we love having a bakery, and I wish we would discontinue the turnovers. Just discontinue them. We don't need to offer that product anymore. So yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I don't know what to do here. It's very unfortunate for both, because like you said, I agree. I like Jackson Arnold. I think that he has a lot of potential. We saw all of it against Arizona in that bowl game. Hostile environment, true freshman, a veteran offensive line because they're healthy, but you had all of that in front of you at Arizona. You saw decisiveness, throwing the ball, running, scrambling, and the turnover that happened in that game wasn't even on him. But what happened in the summer? Did Seth Luttrell really put us that far back being the offensive coordinator for what's that, 9 months? Has this 9 months, 9 to 10 months of being offensive coordinator really set us back 4 years? It feels like it may be that may be the thing. But John, with his turnovers, can you truly trust him against a team like Alabama coming up next week?
I don't think so. I think that's why you have to go into this week and next week and have a little bit of competition and just see who raises their game. Because here's the thing, like you see it all over college football, right? Quarterbacks that are less talented, quote unquote, have less tools in their bag. They mentally are able to rise to the occasion and overcome some of the obstacles and the odds that they're facing. And Jackson Arnold's faced a ton of odds. So is Michael Hawkins Jr. this year. With the offensive play calling situation, with the offensive line, the wide receiver injuries, they've faced long odds to be successful. But you see it again across college football. Guys that are mentally tough enough can overcome those things, raise their game, or at least not put their team in disadvantage positions. And all Jackson Arnold had to do on Saturday night, after getting the ball back, after Missouri tied the game, is just protect the football. If you don't have a throw, you eat it and take a sack, you throw it away, and you live for overtime. That's all you had to do. And again, it goes back to this thing that we discussed the other night, the situational awareness piece of this. There are obvious moments in a game where you just literally cannot be carefree with the football. Yeah. And that's one of those. And then the fourth down where he scrambles for 26 yards, you have to know you get the first down and you get down. Those are basic fundamental things that you have to be able to do as a football player. Getting out of bounds, in the 2-minute drill, basic fundamental thing. Now, it's not something that he did or did not do, but it's just one of those examples of a basic fundamental thing that you have to do in a 2-minute drill is get out of bounds or get down after you stop the clock with the first down.
Yep.
And so there's just been no progression on that front. And if you are mentally not where you need to be, you can't play SEC football. Doesn't matter what kind of tools you have. Doesn't matter the athleticism that you have. Mentally, you have to be locked in every single snap. Otherwise, you end up throwing for 74 yards, averaging half as many yards per attempt as your lead running back did in the game. And that's not going to work for Oklahoma.
Yeah, and you feel bad because you got to realize SEC's big boy football. Like, we got to get past the...
And I'll say this would not work in Big 12 football.
Oh, no, it wouldn't. No,
this would not work in American Athletic Conference football. This would not work.
Yeah, fumbling the ball is not going to work in any conference whatsoever. But at the same time, for us as fans and critiquers of the team, it's recognizing that this is SEC ball. We can't go off the old standard of the Big 12, and that's the unfortunate thing for our entire room. Being critiqued is going to be you're being heavily scrutinized and watched even more now than you have been before, especially being the new kids on the block in the SEC. Sure enough, when Missouri and Texas A&M first got into the SEC year one, it was kind of not very good, but then year two they ascended. I don't know if we can get that lucky because our schedule flips and it's basically the same teams. It's the same teams next year and it just flips.
Yep.
Now we do have a chance with more home games to be able to try to, right our ship. But for us, the most important thing, 100%, we've got to get the quarterback position right. And if you don't get the quarterback position right in the SEC, you're cooked. Unless you got a steel curtain defense. We can talk about that.
Yeah, we're going to talk about what happened to the defense at the end of the game against Missouri. We'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. Hey, Sooner fans, we're bringing you info on Roy. You got to download the Roy app. You have heard us talk about it Roy this season and how they are revolutionizing the NIL industry. Roy allows you, the fan, to have a say in who gets the NIL money. And here's what I absolutely love about Roy. You get your money back if that player transfers. Roy is helping us keep our team intact, and it's actually good for the game long term. Now let's spotlight our Roy player of the week, Zach Schmidt. We're going to throw some money into his account on Roy. Every contribution counts, 10, 20 bucks. It all adds up and is going to help your favorite players stay put. Join me and show some love for Zach Schmidt or anybody else on Oklahoma's roster. Go download the Roy app to join roy.com today. Use promo code Locked On. Every athlete from every team is there. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Go to joinroy.com for full terms. Roy, support the players, change the game.
Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers bet $5 and you're going to get $150 in bonus bets if you win. So there's a lot of games to look at in the NFL as well as college. This weekend, there's some pretty big games. I mean, you can look at Colorado, -9.5 against Utah. You could go with Arkansas to cover the spread against Texas at 13.5. There's so many options there. And so with FanDuel, the sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL and college all in one place. So if you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you want to check out live stats, view play-by-play, and so much more, it's all on the same page where you place your bet. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll start with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Jay, there's been a lot of talk about the Oklahoma Sooners defense as they kind of let it slip away a little bit in the second half. And I'll say this, I was one of those people immediately after the game that was kind of hard on the defense, talking about how it slipped away. Again, Oklahoma had a 9-3 lead coming out of halftime and allowed Drew Pine to have a lot of success in that second half. At the same time, I will say this, the offense didn't do them any favors.
No. I normally would not say much on that portion of it because the ball positioning and placement was not very optimal. But the one thing I will point out, and which this has been pointed out, like you said, over the last couple of days, is that drive, 8 plays, 57 seconds.
Yeah.
That was a massive lapse of judgment and thought for the defense. We should not have let them drive the field on that possession to tie the game.
With such ease.
With such ease. It was 2 minutes left. You take the lead on a scoop and score. Sooner Magic shows that its rears its head is real. And as soon as Sooner Magic shows up, it just fizzles away.
Yep.
You
should have been over.
Should have been over. Should have been over. And yeah, so for me, I still believe the defense is good. We've seen it do so many great things. I mean, statistically, we've held teams down which is kind of a shocker. But the 2 touchdowns by Theo Weiss,
Killer.
You knew that he was going to get up for this game. You knew that he was ready for this one. We got to do better in that aspect.
Well,
That's, to me, was a struggle.
The first one was just because they weren't aligned. They were not where they needed to be. It was 3rd and goal from the 13-yard line. Like, Missouri gets down to the 10. You create a negative play on the Dominic Williams strip that Drew Pine jumps on, and then you get a tackle for loss, setting up a 3rd and 13. That's a get off the field down in distance for Oklahoma,
100%.
Or at least force a field goal. And because you're not aligned properly, they run this bubble tunnel screen, and it's easy money for them.
Yep.
It's because you're not aligned properly. And that's one of those situations right there where the head coach, the defensive staff have to recognize what's going on such a critical down. You have to recognize it. You've got to call timeout. You've got to. Not having your team lined up at the snap has been such an issue. I've listened to Tate and Gabe talk about this all season long. It's been an issue. And I think you don't even need their expert opinions to be able to tell you that it's been an issue. You can see it with your eyes too. Then that final drive, again, some of it is the ease in which it happened. Theo Weiss getting 28 yards on the first down of the drive, getting them into plus territory. And it kind of all goes from there. Oklahoma gets them into a 3rd and 16. Again, a get off the field, money down for the Oklahoma Sooners. Well, what do? They rush 3. And R. Mason Thomas getting triple teamed still almost generates pressure. You drop 8 into coverage and you still can't cover. Jacoby Johnson, I love you, man, but you got to keep your feet, dude. You got to. If you keep your feet, that's potentially ball game. Woody Washington,
Yeah.
You've got all this experience in the world. Why are we letting Luther Burden just run free by you? I know that you're expecting safety help. I get that. I know that you're protecting the flat. I understand that's your responsibility in that situation. You've got to err more on the side of caution towards Luther Burden. If you give up a flat play, okay, you give up a flat play, but you're still keeping the ball in front of you. Listen, you got to protect the deep ball. You cannot let them get a deep ball like that in that situation, in that moment. And I'm sure the coverage responsibility lied with Jacoby Johnson in the deep third. I totally get that. But if that was the call, Zach Alley, what are we doing letting Luther Burden have that much space? Whether Jacoby Johnson falls down or not, because you're still relying on your guy making a play on Luther Burden in a 50-50 situation.
Why don't you have Eli Bowen shadowing Luther Burden at all times? Eli has the speed. They're almost the same size. They're roughly the same size, dudes. That's the guy that you should have on them. And so, yeah, that's a lapse of that's what you get out of a young defensive coordinator. Venables is focused on everything else in the game. Young DC doing it. That's on them. That's one of those.
I think they just have their corners playing one side of the field. Like Eli Bowen, he's their left cornerback. And then they rotate that right corner. And so they don't play the follow game, but maybe they're going to have to with Eli Bowen at some point in the future because he's just that dang good.
Yeah, do pattern matching, something. Just have him shadow the dude. You can shadow him in zone. But if there's anything you need to know where the heck that dude was at. Mm-hmm. That's going to be important. You're going to have an even bigger test next week. You got Ryan Williams coming to town. And the bad part is that he's a phenom, but he ain't their best wide receiver. He's a young phenom, though. So you got to keep an eye on him. You keep an eye on Law. You got a lot of players at Alabama to keep your eyes on, especially after what they did to LSU this past weekend. You got a lot of stuff that you got to keep your eyes on. So that's, to me, is going to be the next big struggle for Oklahoma, is figuring out how we're going to defend those. And then, don't forget, they've got a quarterback that likes to run. We just let Drew Pine scramble on us. Of all people, Drew Pine got the scramble on us. Now we got to see a dude that actually runs the ball and design runs. Mm-hmm. Now, I know that we've done well overall. Defense got to step up for this game. At least keep it competitive. If the game's competitive, nobody's going to complain. If this game's not competitive, somebody getting fired.
I go back to looking at this game and man, you've gotten a lot out of your defense this year. You've gotten so much. They've played well. I think what we've seen is they're a good defense. They're not a great defense yet. They're not near an elite defense, because a great defense and elite defense gets a stop in that final 2 minutes. A great defense and elite defense is able to slow down Drew Pine. You're able to maybe force a turnover or two. You're maybe able to not let that 2-minute drill look so easy. You're not giving up a 28-yarder on the first play of the 2-minute drill. Great defenses, elite defenses make the offense struggle for every single yard. Yep. Doesn't matter the situation. But we've seen advancement. We've seen progression. We've seen development out of this defense. My biggest offseason question is going to be who fills the vacuum and who fills the void left by Danny Stutsman and Billy Bowman next year. That leadership, that tenacity, that performance on the field. For some of the things that Billy Bowman hasn't done great this year, he's made some really big time plays for you. The 4th and 1 stop on Luther Burden, the scoop and score that got you the lead in the game. Danny Stutsman, obviously one of Oklahoma's best defensive players over the last decade or more. You're going to miss that guy. You've got talented guys coming up behind them, but are they going to be able to rise to the same level of play and production and leadership on the field that you've had out of Danny Stutsman and Billy Bowman over the last couple of years. That's going to be one of the big offseason questions for a defense that is littered with talent.
Yeah, we've got a lot of young talent that is at that age now where they're ready to take over. You've got, this is the year where every single player is a Brent Venables staff selected player. Luckily, the linebacker room is the one I'm not concerned about.
Right.
Secondary, it's time to see those dudes step up. I mean, we did lose one, unfortunately, but, with Josiah Wagner when he transferred out. But now it's time to see if these other guys are ready to step in and be those players. So, seatbelt. Makari Vickers, it's your time, right? Jacoby, it's your time. Eli, it's your time. Newcomb, you're young, but it's your time. It's time for y'all to start showing up and showing us that you guys are the recruits that we thought you were.
Yeah, that cornerback room has to step up in particular over the next year because it's got to get better. If there's an area on the defense that has to improve the most, that's the position. And with Eli Bowen, you've locked down one side. If Gentry Williams can come back healthy, you feel great about your other side. And you've got two corners that can make a lot of plays for you. Why does the SEC hate Oklahoma?
ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember, make ZBiotic your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly and you'll feel your best tomorrow. So how does it work? Step 1, drink pre-alcohol. For best results, take pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Step 2, drink responsibly. Pace yourself, hydrate, and get a good night's sleep. Step 3, enjoy tomorrow. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. So go to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with 100% money back guarantees. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotic.com/lockedoncollege and use the code LOCKEDONCollege at checkout for 15% off.
The Oklahoma Sooners and the Alabama Crimson Tide will go to battle on Owen Field in prime time.
Prime time.
The SEC gave Oklahoma, Alabama, the ABC broadcast on prime time at 6:30 in week 13. And initially I looked at that and I'm like, dang it. How is the SEC going to do Oklahoma and Alabama like that? And then you look at the schedule and it's kind of cheeks. The only other game that I think they should have considered there was Vanderbilt LSU. And that one still could be in prime time. It's got that 6 to 8 p.m. window, but you could have put that one on ABC. You didn't have to do Oklahoma with the national broadcast there.
I understand it's historic. It's a game that, has, it's blue bloods, big names, guaranteed to get a massive draw. Even with Oklahoma sucking right now, it's guaranteed to get massive eyeballs. But man, why do they hate us so much, man? Why we got to keep getting this? Our schedule has been terrible. We get to play Alabama in prime time, so it's tough.
A red hot Alabama team, by the way. Like they're phenomenal right now.
Balling right now. Yes. A balling Alabama team coming to town. Game that we were all excited about. We circled. I got my tickets, and I'm just like, so does anybody else want to go to this game? No, I'm going to go. I'm going to go enjoy the night air and watch Alabama, Jalen Milroe do things that Jalen Milroe does. But yeah, there was really, I'm looking at it now. I'm like, ooh, woof.
There's going to be a lot of nervous energy inside Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium that night. Listen, and at the same time, bring it on. Either Oklahoma rises to the occasion or it's another devastating defeat. And we can just add that one to the list of things that went wrong this season. Listen, and when I say Oklahoma rising to the occasion, I'm not expecting them to beat Alabama. I'm not. But
I am.
Play a competitive football game. Sure. Jay's being sarcastic. You can't see it on the podcast. He's being sarcastic. Yeah. So not great, but at the same time, it's going to be a great atmosphere. It's going to be one of those college football atmospheres that you only get in the non-conference. And typically, when Ohio State came to town, when Tennessee would come to town, that's the environment you're going to get. It's just a shame that Oklahoma isn't living up to expectations, isn't going to be able to hold up its end of the bargain in this big time matchup of two blue blood programs. It's just a shame. Looking at the SEC weekend, Jay, what stood out to you from this past weekend?
Jalen Milroe rushed for 158 yards on 12 carries against LSU and only threw for 109. Like, he cooked that team single-handedly, all with his legs, and their defense was everywhere. LSU could not handle them, which really surprised me. I thought that they were a lot better than that, but it was not a good showing for them whatsoever. And so I expected that game to have been a lot closer than what it was. And I think it's always funny. We talk about, being at Death Valley at night, which, I mean, don't be surprised if the last game of the season is something similar, just because, I mean, luckily the Iron Bowl is going on, so that's probably the game they're going to give the night cap. But so I expect us to be the 11 o'clock kickoff. Please be an 11 o'clock kickoff. Just get us over with, get it out. But at the same time, we want to hang out down there in Baton Rouge and enjoy the environment. But talking about nighttime in Death Valley and how terrifying it is and how it's a really tough environment. Alabama has always gone down there and dominated. That's basically what they do. So if there's anything, I think Alabama has more wins in Death Valley than LSU has wins against Alabama total.
Wow.
Or something crazy like that. It's like, wow, they go down there and win. And that's just kind of how it is. So it would have been nice for LSU to at least like pinch them, but it feels like that wasn't going to happen. What other game jumped out to you?
I mean, Ole Miss, dude. You got to give Ole Miss credit.
You got to give them their flowers.
And Jackson Dart, I mean, they dominated Georgia. Absolutely dominated them. You won by 18 points, held them to 10, and you're able to score. Like, Ole Miss, I said it when they expanded the playoff. There were a couple teams I thought were going to benefit the most from playoff expansion. One of those was Penn State, because they were struggling to get by Ohio State and Michigan in recent years. Now, they look pretty good this year. Obviously, a top 5 team in the country. But Ole Miss was the other one, because they would have great seasons, but struggle with an Alabama or a Georgia or an LSU and a Georgia, or, just like they'd lose 2 games to some really good teams and be out of the playoff situation. Now, this year they lost to Kentucky, was one of their losses, but they've bounced back and had some really strong performances. And this one against Georgia, obviously this is not the same Georgia from the back-to-back national title winning seasons, or even the Georgia that we saw last year, but it's still a really good Georgia team. And so you got to give Ole Miss some credit for that. They absolutely put on a really, really strong performance that makes you think they could be a national title contender in this one. The other one is Tennessee. Like, Tennessee may not be like just lighting things up and absolutely destroying people. They just keep winning. They're just winning football games. And that's putting them in a situation where they're on track to be an SEC title player. And they could be playing for the SEC title game here in a few weeks if they continue to do that.
Yeah, no, that's 100% true. And I agree. Ole Miss and Penn State were the two that got the biggest benefit, because their coaches, I think, are the exact same guy.
Yeah.
But the good thing for Ole Miss, this is their first win, their highest win against an AP ranked team in school history. So Lane Kiffin finally got that monkey off of his back. Now he's finally getting a signature W out there. Kind of crazy to me though. Georgia scored less points against Ole Miss than we did.
Stupid.
That makes me mad.
Yep, makes me mad. Remember, in our last 2 SEC games, Oklahoma held a lead at halftime. 14-10 against Ole Miss, 9-3 against Mizzou. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. We'll just finish it on a high note. Hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks for tuning in and subscribing to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So go hit that subscribe button and that notification bell. Just past 9,000 subscribers. So thank you so much for subscribing to the show over on YouTube. Help us get to 10,000. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, please do so and share it with your friends, your family. Tell them to listen to Locked On Sooners every single day.
Thanks for getting us to 9,000. We appreciate it.
Salute
Milestone.
to you. Yep. Make sure you go follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Check out his channel, Unfair Sports, as well. Follow me at John9Williams and read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. Follow the show at Locked On Sooners on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, wherever you like to do your social media stuff. We are there. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. Boomer.
Sooner.